in my marriage is where I ended up finding the most hurt and challenging times. Starting out, my husband and I, we were on fire for God. We were young, on fire, and ready to just conquer the world. Well, I guess about a year into marriage, things ended up going sour, started to go sour. I had a lot of expectations, and they ended up not going the way I thought they would. My husband started drinking and finding himself kind of in an identity crisis. And this is where it all began. He ended up walking away from God through a process and all these things. He ended up walking away from God. The next I know, he becomes bitter towards me because I was still completely focused on God, and his heart was so far away from God. I found myself alone a lot, confused, and we ended up arguing about every little thing. We spent quite a few years like this, just very disconnected. And I just kept praying for him, not knowing what the root of the problem was, but I kept praying. I was at a loss, though. I didn't understand how we ended up like this. There was just no communication, so I'm not sure how. I just wasn't sure where all this was coming from. Billy and I have known each other since we were young teens, and even then he wanted to marry me. He was always telling me how we were meant to be together, and that just, as a young kid, first off, that wasn't my thought. And then we were just friends, so that was not going to happen. But later on, of course, we obviously got married. And so he was right. Through all this, though, there was just, during this time, the brokenness, and I was crushed because I was expecting something different out of our marriage, and it just didn't look like that. Even at one point, I was blaming God because I was like, how are you allowing me to go through this whenever all I want to do is serve you, and now I'm married to this person who I don't even know anymore. I don't understand. But then, of course, I just quickly repented because I know the Lord was the only one that could help me. Well, as I began to pray, the more I prayed, I realized I need to ask God to just show me what was the root of the problem, and to just bring out whatever this darkness is into the light. And that was a very scary thing for me to pray, because I knew that it could reveal some things that would end up, hurting me. But I needed to know what was the root of our problem. Why are we going through this? The first day I prayed that prayer, I ended up finding out that he had a drinking problem. And I started to see that he had been lying to me, and realizing that there was just some lies and things weren't adding up to me. So there was a lot of hurt starting to come on, and the trust just went straight out the window. I'm like, who did I marry? So through more time with God, I would hear the Lord just tell me to hang on, even though I would find out often these times that he's lied to me. And I was just crushed. I was hurt that there's just so many lies. And it just kept getting worse, and just lies from Satan to him, telling him that he's worthless. He'll never mount up to anything. And then there's, the lies that he would put on me because he was just so confused with who he was and what he wanted and all these things that he ended up just hiding away in shame and not telling me anything in his feelings. At one point, he just tells me he thinks we should probably get a divorce. And then, of course, I tell him it's not what I wanted, but, if it's what he wanted, I'm not going to hold him back. But we ended up talking through that a bit and hanging in there. But once again, it just keeps getting worse because there's no communication, and he's pushing me further and further away. And then at one point, it got so bad that I had found out that he was really thinking about leaving me. His heart was so far away that he was searching for attention elsewhere. And when I realized that, I didn't know if I could hold on anymore. That this might have been it. I was in shock, really, because I just couldn't believe that we had just got to that point. And I remember sitting in the car ready to leave him, but God wouldn't let me leave the house. And he wouldn't let me leave the house. So I sat there. And then Billy comes out and he tells me, I know our problem. He says, I've left God. He says, I've left God, and this is the problem. And so I said, well, I'll walk back into the house with him, and shocked by just knowing how far away his heart has gotten from me, that, he's just, anyways, as we continue to talk and kind of start opening up and communicating, he just starts pouring out to me. And then the next thing I know, for days we're talking, by the way, and the next thing I know, he's on the floor in tears, repenting to God and to me for like 3 hours, just sobbing. And then hope came back to me. It's like, okay, okay, Lord, something's happening here. And sure enough, it was the beginning of something good. And it was really hard for even years after that. We struggled with the trust issues and the pain and the hurt triggers that would cause me to panic a bit and anxiety and things like that. But he stepped up and started to fight for this marriage. And so I started to fight too. I've been fighting, but we started to fight together is what I mean. And then, of course, there was times where he had to pick me up because I was overwhelmed with the emotions. But we kept pressing on, and some years into this, it's like the Lord just restored us. It wasn't overnight, but as we pressed on, God just took more and more of those, chains off of us, and we became more and more free the more we pressed into God together. And then here we are today, and we're free. We are free, and sorry, it's just beautiful, and I know not every story ends up like that, but I know God has a plan and to bring restoration, if for your soul. For my soul, he brought me restoration, And I believe that, if Billy were to have stayed or have gone or whatever the issue would have, however it would have unfolded, I think that I know that God still would have restored me either way, because he's in the business of restoration. That's what he wants to do for us. So my hope is to bring more people on and to let them share their story and give testimony of what the Lord has done through their heartache and their trials. There's just so many times I wanted to give up, back down, throw in the towel, but every time I pressed into the Lord, he would give me hope, or he would tell me to hold on. He would give me something to cling to. And if we could just do that with God, go the distance with God through the suffering, through the pain, the present suffering cannot compare to the glory that's to come. I know that's talking about heaven, but even here on earth, we don't know, what salvation might come, when salvation might come for someone. And if we could walk with them through their struggles, just maybe salvation will come to them as well. And if you will walk with God and cling to him, restoration can come to you. Thank you for listening, and I hope this encourages you in some way. And stay tuned in for more episodes of just testimonies of people I know personally that have walked, who have gone the distance with God and seen beauty out of it.